Good morning, good afternoon, good night, hello, goodbye. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. In fact, there are many of you here. I want to do a quick check. What were you doing, Marianne, when we called you? No, you don't have to tell me. I just cooked a pot of soup.
I was observing the drama at the Parliamentary Oversight Committee.
Oh, okay. Must do what I do. I cook a pot of food when I'm stressed. This week, the board of Eskom briefed me on the outcome of its consultations with former Group Chief Executive, Mr. Brian Molefe, following my request that the proposed pension payout to Mr. Molefe be re-evaluated. In fact, let me just say to you that I am going to call a press conference next week with the board, because there are many technical questions that you might want to be asking that is completely in the domain of the board. And so early next week, I will have that press conference. After considering various options, and the board proposed that Mr. Molefe return all monies received on his departure from Eskom on the 1st of January 2017 and is reinstated as Group Chief Executive with immediate effect. In terms of the board's proposal, Mr. Molefe agreed to serve out the remainder of his original contract and to reconsider the terms of his contract that resulted in the previous pension arrangement. Shall I read that again? Yeah. In terms of the board's proposal, Mr. Molefe agreed to serve out the remainder of his original contract and to reconsider the terms of his contract that resulted in the previous pension arrangement, the one that I objected to. I believe the board's proposal ultimately presents a significantly better value proposition to the South African fiscus than the previous pension proposal. I informed the board I was satisfied with its re-evaluation process and recognized the merit in its proposal on the proviso of its legality. However, the matter has raised an important broader issue relating to state-owned companies. And I've asked my department to work with the state-owned companies to ensure that the pension packages negotiated with executives at state-owned companies are in line with the cabinet-approved remuneration standards that is part of the SOC reform process. In a related development, the board has also briefed me on the status of the investigation into allegations of impropriety regarding Eskom's interim CE, Machela Koko. The board appointed a firm of attorneys to conduct the probe independently. The appointed firm has requested more time to complete its work. The board is of the view that this extra time should be granted. In the interest of the process, the interim group chief executive has decided to take leave until the investigation is finalized by mid-June. And I support the acting CE's decision. I would like to assure South Africans that the final investigative report will be transparently handled, and firm action will be taken against Mr. Koko should evidence of wrongdoing be discovered. Finally, I would like to reiterate my call for a decisive investigation into allegations of maladministration raised in various reports, including the former Public Protector's State of Capture report. Clouds of unproven allegations and counter-allegations are doing state-owned companies and our country a great service. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Minister.
Can I say, or you can give a
Minister,
Paul and Linda?
Paul and Linda, but in terms of age, Minister, Linda first. That
Well,
was-
it's beauty for before age.
I think in this case it's squirrels before swine.
Linda,
Ooh.
Linda and Paul and Maria.
Minister, in light of the outrage across the spectrum about the appointment of Mr. Molefe before any conclusion of the inquiry into the state capture report, how possibly can you justify that as a good decision? And apart from the financial aspect, the ethical aspect just glares out screamingly. Thanks.
Paul?
Hi, Minister. Paul Becchiato of Bloomberg. Whilst in terms of the Companies Act, the board can make such an appointment, surely Cabinet has to be informed of this, and were they, because he is considered a prescribed person. And was this discussed in Cabinet on Wednesday? Thank you. And how long was his original term for?
Okay. Then Maria.
Hi, Marianne Milton, Daily Maverick. Effectively, the calculation to say it's cheaper for South Africa to keep Brian Molefe at Eskom than pay him the 30 million. Isn't that a case of government actually being hijacked and held to ransom? And surely now is the time for yourself as shareholder minister, not only of Eskom, but also your whole cabinet colleagues, to really put their foot down. Because as Linda was saying, the political blowback and the criticism at a time when we've been downgraded, we're facing further downgrades, something like that is just absolutely unacceptable. Particularly at Eskom, which is one of the leading SOEs that does participate on the international markets to raise money. Thank you.
Let me just answer the last question first. It's very interesting. You know, there's a public narrative that says that Eskom is in an exceptionally bad state. Eskom, I can say, and it says there's a credit rating agency, and there's a possibility that we're going to be downgraded again. We are seeing the credit rating agencies in a week's time, I think. And as it stands today, Eskom actually, both nationally and internationally, has been able to cover its costs, its build program, the loans it goes out to in the market, by 90%. The company is financially sustainable. Compare this to what I said 3 years ago. I'm glad that DJ Aidan Thomas isn't here. He's still looking for me because he bought a generator. Because I said there would be 3 years of load shedding. Comparatively speaking, the company is actually in a much better state than it was 3 years ago. I think the issue is, for me, is that there is outrage, and the outrage is around one issue in particular, and that's the State of Capture report. Now, the State of Capture report makes one recommendation, and the recommendation is for further investigation. And until Mr. Molefe, until the President actually uses his prerogative and calls a commission of inquiry, or there is another form of investigation, Mr. Molefe is not guilty of anything yet. And so for me, I think that is that's the outrage that there's been in the public space. That he has been accused of having been captured And so he therefore can't go back to Eskom. And that it's an ethical outcry that's happened. But the man hasn't been found guilty yet. He must be seen as innocent until he's proven guilty. And I've said this on a number of platforms. I think if there is some form of investigation, and I know the prerogative for a commission of inquiry rests with the president, I mean, there will be this, is he guilty or isn't he guilty? Mr. Molefe's contract is still 2.5 years. It's still to go. It's a 5-year contract, I think, Paul. The pension has been calculated as a legal document in terms of the pensions fund and so forth. And Mr. Molefe was actually the person who brought Eskom where it is today after 3 years. And I know he was paid to the maintenance, and he was paid to keep the lights on. It was his job to do so. But I can tell you, when I sat here before you 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I really didn't know if the lights were going to go on, and that the country was in a state of load shedding. And I only use load shedding as an example of it. It's not in the financial sustainability of the company. And the company clocks profits now. Before this, I thought they were not going to clock profits. In terms of the Companies Act, so I think I've dealt with the ethical. I also think that there's I've dealt with the ethical issue. When Mr. Molefe is declared guilty or not, then we can take a decision about whether his return is an ethical one or not. The Companies Act, the board can make a decision. Now, you know, in terms of the Companies Act, I draw up an MOI. And the MOI, under the previous MOI that existed from 2008 until 2015, it's a 5-year MOI. And that's the agreement from the Companies Act between the shareholder and the board. Under the Companies Act then, or under the MOI then, the board actually had a right to negotiate the settlement. The board won't have a right to negotiate the settlement any longer, because we've rewritten the MOI. And in the rewriting of the MOI, none of the boards, for Marianne, none of the boards will be able to do so. It is how the MOIs are written. And so that one was negotiated in 2008 without this, maybe the kind of issues that are happening today. But when it came up for renewal, we changed the MOI so that they don't have that. Has government been hijacked? You know, this is a very complex matter. And this is why I think state-owned companies, the reform process is such an important process. Because state-owned companies operate under the Companies Act. And under the Companies Act, the shareholder appoints a board to exercise its fiduciary responsibility. It's not operational, but it exercises its fiduciary responsibility on behalf of the shareholder. And so when the board acts within the broad policy of the state. And it doesn't act necessarily in consultation constantly with the shareholder representative. And so for so many of the areas, I think I would bring in the board as well so that the board is able to tell you all the technical dynamics of how they arrived at this decision, and I will bring the board next week. So I don't feel hijacked. I feel that there's a decision that has come to me, and on the face of it, and the fact that the board has assured me that it's a legal process, I have accepted that Mr. Molefe would be in the employ of Eskom until the end of his contract. I still think it's a better proposition than paying Mr. Molefe 30 million rand as a pension.
Can I just have a second round and then a final in Pretoria and it's a semi-final in Pretoria and a final in Cape Town. Okay, Paul, you have it's window.
Minister, sorry. Thanks. So don't check this. So does Mr. Molefe enjoy your unequivocal support? Just a second question. With regards to the ratings agencies, if you can just provide some clarity, are you saying that you are confident, given the brouhaha and the allegations about that the credit ratings agencies will not consider his reappointment as a factor? Are you feeling certain that you'll be able to convince them that it was the best decision to be made? And then just finally, just with regards to his reappointment, will you consider that after the end of the 2.5 years that he is no longer eligible to be sort of with his extension that to be extended? Is that something that you would consider, possibly extending it beyond the 2.5 years and final? And in this 2.5 years, is he eligible for any bonus payments? Okay.
Let me just deal with the bonus payments. You know, you guys deal with this bonus payments every time as if I do give them bonus payments. They haven't had bonus payments for 3 years. They have what is called short-term and long-term incentives that they invest in within the company. And it's a repeated point that you make when you say, and they get these huge bonuses. They haven't had a bonus under my watch. They've had, last year, they've had a 4.2% across the board increase as just under CPI -2, I think, or -2. So they don't get a bonus. I'm not sure if I'll be here in 2.5 years' time. I can't say to you that the board makes a decision on whether or not Mr. Molefe or anybody is employed, and they bring that to, they bring 3 proposals to me, and if I'm here, then I think that by that will be the end of 2019, so I won't be making that decision, I suspect. But I'm not aware of it. And I'm not sure what, if Mr. Molefe has been, everything has, you know, there's been an investigation and he's been cleared. I can't make a prediction like that, whether he'll remain or not. I still don't know what the credit rating agencies will say. And all we can do as Team South Africa is to put our best foot forward for the credit rating agencies. I do know that on the strength of their financial sustainability, that the credit rating agencies will not be able to fault them. I think Eskom, for the first time, has actually been able to even run its company with a 2.2 tariff increase. Eskom has given me an assurance within 5 years that they will reduce their guarantee reliance by almost 100 billion. Now, those are matters that I think are matters that can't be scoffed at. They show a company that is actually quite resilient in a period where the economy of the global economy and the South African economy is quite stagnant, actually. including the fact that electricity usage and electricity demand is much lower than it's been before. So I think the company itself is actually quite sustainable. And I believe in terms of those issues, I've hoped that dealing with the issue of the interim CE would show that, you know, the cries from the public are important. Even though Mr. Cork has not been found guilty by the report, by the investigation, I feel he's done well to willingly step down.
One of Molefe, exactly the same situation.
But there's not an investigation going on at the moment.
Well, there was an investigation.
But the investigation is not conclusive, Linda. I mean, I was named in the investigation, remember? So, you know, I mean, the same thing applies to me. And I really think that people must be found. I think the outrage we have sometimes is very personal. I mean, I know that when I saw the 30 million, I thought even after all these years of me working, I'll never get 30 million rand. It becomes, it's personal it's a personal feeling that I had around the 30 million rand. And I really want to take the personal out of it and try and be as objective as possible. Okay.
Support, sorry, the support question. He doesn't enjoy support. Unequivocal
Well,
support.
I mean, you know, I can't give anybody unequivocal support. I say, you come back, you do your job. When you prove your job well done, then I give you my support. And unequivocal, I'm not sure if I ever give unequivocal anything.
Okay, I just want these two hands and then in Pretoria.
Here's a hand here as well. The hand's been on for a...
But you pointed
There are
at
two
me
hands
quite
here.
quickly.
It's geographic.
That's the final,
I have one question, Minister.
Yeah.
The ANC issued a statement which seems to be in stark contrast to your statement that you just delivered now. They described this decision as unfortunate, reckless, and insensitive. Is there any reason why you see this differently to the party that deployed you? And clarity, after 2.5 years, are you saying that Brian will be entitled to 30 million once he concludes his contract? It's just clarity, Minister. I think I might be a little bit. Please, can you assist me with that?
He must, in 2.5 years, he'll get the pension that he gets for 5 years employment.
Which is 30 million.
No.
So he is not getting 30 million.
Remember, I've declined the 30 million. And so he must get a pension that is market related to the 5 years that he is. I don't know what it will be. Sorry.
How did they reach 30 million in the first place?
Oh, actually, it was. This is done in terms of the pension fund, the national pension fund, and that's how they arrived at the 30 million.
Sorry, what national pension?
Okay, can I?
The pension fund. It's governed by the Pension Fund Act, and then every company has its own pension fund. And Eskom has its own pension fund. So the Act governs the pension, and that's how the calculations have been done.
The question on the ANC statement, Colin.
Sorry, okay. Can we just have SABC? Manalisa?
Yes, I don't want to know. Let me just answer him. I don't want to preempt a meeting that the ANC is going to call me to. So I prefer not to answer the question.
Minister, Manalisa from the SABC. Minister, unless I misunderstood you, it does look like you don't understand where this outrage comes from. But if I can just very quickly take you back that, by the way, Mr. Molefe, when you resigned, after he publicly cried, of course, in a press conference. He said that he was going to clear his name, and our understanding is that if you want to clear your name, you have to take that report of the public protector on the review. And he says that he was resigning on the basis of ensuring good governance. It does look like none of that has happened. He hasn't cleared his name. I mean, I don't know whether the issue of good governance, you just throw it out of the window if it suits the government. And that's exactly precisely, maybe even the ANC statement is based on that. That the public perception is that, I mean, he must fall on his own sword. He said it himself, and none of that has happened. Now, the question is, on what basis are you bringing him back?
I'm bringing him back on the basis of the board having gone back to reevaluate the pension after I have declined the 30 million rand. And on those, that's the ground that he's coming back. I have never said that I don't understand the outrage that people have. I understand it, and that's why I'm sitting before you here today. I've read every single tweet and every single newspaper article and listened to every single radio station on it. And that's why I'm sitting here. The issue for me, though, is that there didn't seem to be, there isn't another solution other than paying Mr. Molefe the 30 million rand and or going to court, him taking Eskom to court. And it's on those grounds, and again I say it, on the proviso that Eskom has actually that it's legal, that I've supported the board.
Any questions in Pretoria? Is Antoinette? In Pretoria.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Yes, we do have a question. The person would identify themselves and then we'll take it from there. Thanks, ma'am.
Antoinette Slabbert from Moneyweb. Minister, it seems as if at the bottom of this whole saga is the employment contract of Mr. Molefe. And in your previous press release, you specifically said you didn't have sight of that agreement. You now say it's going to be renegotiated. Now, my question is, how can we trust a board that apparently was satisfied with such a skewed agreement to be in charge of a renegotiation? Is there, or are there any safeguards? You talk about the board assuring you that what is being done now is in order, legally speaking. That's their word. Should we accept their word? And then linked to that is my question, is Eskom out of control? If you look at this event, paying Mr. Molefe 30 million, unless you intervened, he would have, it sounds actually as if he did receive the 30 million. Eskom is opposing the signature of the IPPs in contrast with government policy and even a statement by the President. Eskom is telling NERSA it cannot comply with the prescribed methodology for tariff decisions. Is Eskom out of control?
That is from Pretoria for now. Thank you.
Can I answer that immediately? The question is that I'm not sure if Ms. Slabbert heard it earlier, but in terms of the previous MOI, Eskom was in the right, and that MOI existed from 2008 to 2015. Eskom was in the right to negotiate a pension. The pension is negotiated in terms of the Eskom pension fund that's governed by the Pension Act. Having said this, I said it earlier, and but I don't think Eskom is out of control. In fact, I think the company is in a much better position. There might be opposing IPPs. I don't think Eskom has a, not that I don't think, Eskom doesn't have a right to oppose IPPs, but Eskom has to remain financially sustainable and viable. And the agreement we had with the former minister was that if we were able to pay, if Eskom was able to pay 72 cents per kilowatt on IPPs, then that would help. Because Eskom, otherwise, the 2.2% tariff increase, 50% of that would be what we have to claw back in terms of the public on IPPs alone. And so it's just trying to balance the energy mix. Eskom has signed, and I think this is also a popular view, that Eskom's not signed any IPPs. Eskom has signed up until bid window 3.5. And it now stands to sign 4.5 and 4. And so there are two, and I can't remember what the other uncontrollable issues that Eskom has that you raised. Oh, they couldn't, they had a problem with the methodology of NERSA. If there's a problem with the methodology of NERSA, they should have a right to be able to say that. But it doesn't mean that NERSA doesn't have a right to oppose it.
Thank you, Minister. I just have a final one in the front here, and then we'll see. It depends on time, because I'm also conscious of time. Annika, Lou, Lama, and Dr.
You are actually under my protection. You would never have gotten it. And it's just geography. You couldn't see it.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Minister. Minister, when Mr. Molefe stepped down, he said he did so in the interests of good corporate governance. Do you have any concerns regarding PricewaterhouseCoopers commenting on the Together deal in Parliament? Any good governance issues plaguing Eskom's, and how those, despite the sound financials, how those concerns, if any, will be explained to the ratings agencies? Thank you.
Okay.
SABC. Minister, do you have confidence in the board of Eskom, considering that you rejected the initial pension payout, and now they are coming up with this package? Do you have confidence in them that this is the right thing to do?
You know what, I spoke to analysts today and sort of received that, you know...
Use the mic.
Just tell me the name again.
I spoke to analysts today who sort of said, well, he said that Mr. Molefe is Mr. Nuclear to government, you know, and that he would be the one to ensure that the nuclear program gets back on track. What's your response to that?
Can I squeeze in one quickly, very quickly?
It depends on time. Yeah. Just allow
it seems like Molefe's got the board over a barrel now, but either you pay me 30 million rand or you take me back. I mean, you know, where is all his ethical concerns when he left the company? Just thrown out of the window for money.
Linda, you know, I can't answer that question. I wouldn't know what Mr. Molefe is thinking in terms of that. Annika asked, can you just repeat your question? I mean,
Yes, I mean, Mr. Molefe, when he stood down, said that he was doing so in the interests of good corporate governance. And I want to know, please, if you have any concerns regarding good corporate governance within Eskom, and I'm talking especially about Together, and how you will explain those concerns to the ratings agencies despite Eskom's sound financials. And then a quick question which I didn't add, but maybe you can help me with, is there seems to be a disconnect between the principal person, Lynne Brown, who has been in the ANC for many, many years, and who we all remember as being, I think, a principled person, and Lynne Brown, who is the Public Enterprises Minister, accepting the only legal solution. There seems to be a disconnect, and can you just clear that up for me? Thank you.
I don't know, I think I have to speak to my parents. I'm only just a KP, so, you know, look, the issue is, do I have problems of governance? I have problems of governance with all the state-owned companies. I think that we always can do better. But I also feel quite strongly that I want to be able to. I wouldn't know what Brian's thinking in terms of his. He was resigning because in the interest of good governance and so forth. I want to answer both you and the lady from SABC on, am I convinced of it? Am I convinced of the board? You know, it doesn't take one issue. I'll try to come back to me and me, the other me. It doesn't take one issue to convince me. I know what I came into when I first came into this portfolio. And I remember that the 15th of January, there wasn't going to be money for Eskom. So what I have today is actually a sustainable company, a financially sustainable company, a company who has re-looked. Remember when I first came into this position, they were telling me about how everything, as you know, the build program was costing 100 billion rand more, and so forth, and cost overruns and delays, etc. And 3 years later, I mean, I'm very pleased that we've actually been able to meet all the targets we've set within the 3 years that we've been here. Of course, that doesn't take away the fact that there have been delays over a long period of time. And that Ngula all 4 units of Ngula came online. The second, so it's a number of things that happens that makes you lose faith or not in a board. But I go to an AGM quite soon, an Eskom AGM, and the Eskom AGM, the preparation for the Eskom AGM, one of the things that we do have is a board evaluation, and it's an external board evaluation. And Eskom and Transnet will have those external evaluations, and they have an internal one, and they have an external one. And that will determine many things as well.
When is that due? When will that happen?
When do we start out? It's now soon, isn't it? June.
In June, July.
June. And I think Eskom is one of the first companies that go to AGM. The nuclear to government, it remains a decision in, it has a decision in, remember the court has actually taken Eskom out of as builder and procurer. So Eskom doesn't have a role now to play in it, and it remains in Energy's purview. And I don't think one person, it's a decision of government, it's part of the energy mix, and I don't think one person will be able to sway it either way. The courts ruled on it quite recently. You know, I hope that I would be able to take my principles into everything I do. And I believe I do that. It's managing a portfolio that largely I don't operationally run each of the companies. And so I think the thing that keeps me sane in it all is that there's a SOC reform process that looks at the 22 large economic drivers. And we need to look at what is it that we should be doing with the state-owned companies, the top 22, into the future. And there are many examples across the world where it's either placed in a vehicle that is outside of government, where government remains a shareholder, but it's run in a particular manner, or because it is very complicated, it's very complex to find that a company is doing something and they are actually allowed to do so in terms of the Companies Act. So I think, you know, there are many other things I could say on it, but I don't want you to think that I don't regard your outrage as important. I came here today because I think there must be some answers that you need to get. I mean, I saw somebody raised, quite an esteemed member of the War Room, raised on a tweet earlier, and he said all the investigations, or the majority of investigations in the last short while, they were all under Brian Molefe's watch. And it's not true. And I mean, I don't tweet, so I didn't say, look, it's not true. It's all before the time. And it looks silly when I do it. It looks like I'm just trying to justify him. But I think that's what I'd really like to believe that that you get better answers, more answers from when the board sits next to me, where you ask them the questions, more of the technical answers that you can get. I don't think I should do the board's job. That's why I want them to do that job. And hopefully, and maybe you'll get a better picture of it. I mean, I was thinking about you asked me a question about the Tegeta deal. Now, there have been a number of investigations into it. I'm waiting for the final investigation from National Treasury, because that will put the lid on it, I think. Because Eskom, remember, Eskom had to respond to that report, but that report was I'm not sure it's unfortunate or fortunate, but the draft report was sent to Scopa and various other institutions before Eskom had an opportunity to look at it. So, you know, I'd like to be able to do the investigation, to get a judge and let the judge go and do the investigation. But I have to wait because the president is actually the one who has the prerogative to institute a commission of inquiry, a judicial commission of inquiry. I don't have that right. So that I can clear up, because it is the cloud that we have over the state-owned companies is the fact that they are viewed as being captured. And they are being captured particularly by the Guptas. That's the popular view. And all of these companies, I mean, the two large companies have an asset base of 1 trillion rand. And the last time I checked, in Eskom, it was 1.8% that was in Tegeta, and that 98% was in 4 other big companies. So, look, if you push me hard enough, I'll probably tell you that I do have a plan for how to look at, and now my officials are really going to be angry with me because I'm not supposed to tell you that see it. But I think what we need to do is that we need to look at how the costs on cost plus mines, all those costs, including whether they get prepayments, including all of that. And then the bottom short-term, which Tegeta falls under, short-term mines, so that we clarify that matter once and for always. So that, is it true that prepayments are done for companies? No, I can tell you it is. And companies get prepayments. Then probably the second issue would be, and the PwC report covers only for the Tegeta mines, they cover the issue of the quality of coal. And what happens to companies where the quality of coal is, and we've just had a case of one such company where the quality of coal was not up to standard. I want to name the company. Up to standard. I don't want. So so those kinds of things are important matters. But I think it becomes such a technical thing that we need to actually specify water licenses, prepayments, all of that. And to take out there'll be technicalities, but to take out some of those things. I will be asking the company, for example, who will complete the report on Mr. Koko, to present its findings to me. Normally it gives me the document. Yeah, bless you, and all of us too. And normally we do that, but I'll ask them to present to me so that I can ask them all the questions I need to.
Thank you, Minister. And thank you, members of the media, and also Victoria. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Next Minister.
You know, Andy Siwe.
Carry on, Melissa, it's fine.
When does Brian's come in?
2.5 years.
2.5 years time.
Can read on Google.
You can ask me.
Okay, listening there to Public Enterprises Minister Lynne Brown briefing the media with regards to Brian Molefe's return to Eskom. Some interesting questions and discussions coming after what the minister had to say from the journalists. But before that, the minister saying that the Eskom board briefed her with regards to Brian Molefe's return after rejecting the proposed pension payout of 30 million rand. She also said that Molefe should pay back all the money paid to him when he initially left last year. The minister also saying that she approved the board's proposal provided it was legal and that it makes more financial sense for the country to get Brian Molefe back at Eskom instead of paying out the 30 million rand pension. In response to journalists' questions, she said that Mr. Molefe has not been proven guilty. This, of course, with regards to the allegations made against him in the Public Protector's report. And she says that the ethical outrage in the public space over the Public Protector's report, she says she understands that, but he is legally entitled to go back to work until proven guilty, should he be found guilty with regards to those allegations against him. So she also mentioned that his contract still has 2.5 more years on it, and she said that Mr. Molefe is the person who brought Eskom back from the brink 3 years ago when the country was in the state of load shedding. So the minister reiterating again that she thinks it is financially better to reinstate him than pay out that 30 million rand pension. So she didn't go as far as to say that she's giving Brian Molefe her unequivocal support, but she still gave him praise for his work done at the parastatal. So in the meantime, the ANC has condemned Eskom's decision to reinstate Brian Molefe, calling that decision unfortunate and reckless. So hearing there from the Minister, Lynne Brown, will bring you more on that and coming up in our later bulletins and some other stories coming up. We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
Do you support the calls made by Blayton Nzimande and Solly Mapaila?
It is not a call by Comrade Solly Mapaila and Comrade Blayton Nzimande. It is the position of the party.
Yes.
And the position of the party, we support it unambiguously.
Why?
The theory of the revolution, in simple terms, was that revolutionary forces are going to take charge of the state. And having taken charge of the state, they are going to transform the state to eventually transform society.
Join me, Mpotsedu, live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.